Hello and welcome to my podcast Conversations with David. I'm your host, David Owasi. And on this podcast, we're talking to accomplished entrepreneurs across the country. We are learning about what keeps them passionate, what keeps them going. And we're also talking about some of the lessons learned along the way. Now, I'm here with my very good friend, Andriy. And Andriy and I have been friends for some time now. And I'm super excited to have him on the show. Andriy, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thanks, David. Thanks for having me on, first of all. Quick introduction. Oh, no, good question. I mean, I guess I've tried to apply for a couple of things and they always ask you for a quick intro. And it's so hard I'm terrible at it. The best thing I think I came up with was I'm a first generation immigrant who fell in love with entrepreneurship. I think, and then, through university, I was involved in a number of kind of trying to give back as best as I can and trying to, I guess inadvertently, I didn't realize it at the time, build a network through entrepreneurship and small startups. But since then, gone on to finish my undergrad in business and entrepreneurship with a focus in 8 years, and basically focused on working on a number of local startups at the time. That's kind of what I was prioritizing most of my school, quote unquote, is trying to get as much experience as I could. Again, graduating with an entrepreneurship degree didn't really warrant a solid, like, hey, here's a hard skill, apply for a CFA path, and congratulations, $80,000 a year, here you go. So I had to, try to piece pieces of experiences together and realize that, like, I worked at a bigger company, smaller company, smaller company, smaller company, smaller company, and noticed the trend of, the smaller the number of people on the team, the more hats you have to wear as an individual, and the more responsibility you have, the more freedom you have, the more responsibility you have. So it just turned into this idea. I was like, hey, listen, I think starting your own business is probably best. I also didn't get along with most of my bosses. Well, it's not that we didn't get along. I just had disagreements with them. So
absolutely. Yeah. Well, nice introduction there, Andriy. And I want to start my question first with just trying to get a sense of unpacking your journey in entrepreneurship. So why were you interested in entrepreneurship in the first place? How did you know that entrepreneurship is going to be your thing? What started that path for you?
You know what? That's a great question. And that's one of those questions. I'll tell you how I ended up there. Because I went to university. First year, I did engineering, and I wanted to go into mechanical engineering. And then I went and I got a sales job at a car dealership over the summer. And then I was told that I'm a people person and I should go. And I thought, oh, you know what? Business it is. Here we go. And then for 2 years, I was clueless about what I wanted to do in business. I thought about going accounting because somebody told me that's a steady job. And I tried an accounting position for 2 years. I realized, oh boy, that's not for me. And I get it. I respect accountants for their diligence, but it was just like, I need a constant things to move. And I found entrepreneurship as I just started asking questions like, well, what is the valuable and the meaningful thing that I found? And I don't know, it sounds kitschy and maybe sounds a little corny, but I feel like the entrepreneurship nowadays is kind of like the closest thing you can get to a hunter-gatherer primal experience where you kind of eat what you kill. Again, so many cliches, but I think they work because the ups and the downs are probably the most rewarding career-wise that you can get as a human. I think it's kind of in this capitalist world, we have a number of ways to express ourselves in a valuable way that you can actually sustain yourself as a living. And fundamentally, coming back to it, I think I started with entrepreneurship because I saw that as the avenue to really be the captain of your soul. To if you disagree with everybody, or it's not even disagree, but if you for some reason think that you kind of have a better way of grasping with this small thing than other people, and you think it's a valuable thing that you're doing, you can be your own you can have your own freedom to do that and get paid for it and build a career around it and help other people. And that's essentially why I really admire entrepreneurship. I mean, there's a whole bunch of economic reasons. 70% of the workforce works for small businesses. I mean, small is up to 500 people, but and overall, I think it's just the core of the North American dream: class mobility, freedom to work whenever you want, and however hard you want.
Yeah, so much to unpack there, Andrew.
Yeah,
I really like the comparison you made of entrepreneurship to that primal hunter-gathering thing, because you're very much responsible for your keep. You're not relying on someone to hand over things to you. You go out there, you make your fortune, and fortune favors the brave, I think is what the term is. And I definitely agree with that. And when I just think about my experience, kind of just listening to your experience, I knew that I wanted something out of the ordinary, work for a company, build your career there, and just kind of climb up the corporate ladder. I knew I wanted something where I can control, I can mold, and something I'm passionate about. And I started also my own career in computer science. While I love computer science, I actually thought that was the path to entrepreneurship, because starting a tech company, that was my whole motivation for studying computer science. But of course, College Pro was for myself one of the real place where I was able to really get my hands dirty and learn the nitty-gritty of it. So from yourself, what I'm hearing from you is, entrepreneurship came from you, just, it's the natural way you think about the world and how you approach life itself. How did that transform? How does that interest in entrepreneurship in, that primal state, how does that transfer into real life of you actually being involved in businesses? What did that transition look like? What was your first actual experience in entrepreneurship?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I saw, as I was saying, was like working for a bigger company. So say Skip the Dishes, where they were just kind of post Series B around. I think they had a couple of hundred people, 500, 600 people, maybe even. And I was working there, and you realize, okay, well, this is a smaller company than what I used to work at. You have a little bit of freedom, but all the processes are already there. As an individual, you can't really make much of an impact. You work on the sales team, the scripts are written, the processes are written, here's your A to Z, and you just say this and rinse and repeat. And I was a sales guy, so on cold calling was a big thing, and I still kind of think about that experience as a big learning opportunity, because forced you to not basically somebody else made the decisions and you just had to go through the motions. Didn't feel fulfilling. And if you pay attention to how you feel at work, it's like, oh man, I'm really watching the clock today. And some of those days were really, really long. So, and then I moved to a smaller company. I moved to Permission Click, where it was a team of, I think at 10, 12 people. And then it was like, oh, sales job, but now there is no process. You get to choose whatever you want to do. See, as long as it works, you get to do that. And I tried that. And again, I think it was the freedom of making your own decisions, even the simple things like writing emails and figuring out when to send them, who to send them to, how to prospect and find new clients. And I think it was fundamentally the freedom to to basically go out there, find a fact or a blog post or an article that you think does something good, and go and test it, and go out and bring results and report on results and be as honest as you possibly can be. And there's that. And then, 3, 5, 10 years, almost 10 years now down the line, of kind of that long path, you run your own business, and you realize that process of, hey, I'm going to go out there, get the right information and implement it and see what happens. That's very rewarding. You learn a lot, and then you constantly learn. You never learn everything. And it's very fulfilling, and it's just fun every day.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. And I guess that's the whole idea of intrapreneurship. I think it's what the term is called, where you basically work in an environment where you can experiment, try new things, almost like you're running your own business and you're managing your own expectations. You're basically responsible for your work, which is what you've shared there. And that has a huge impact. Tell me more about your current company, how all of those experiences have led to what you currently do right now, because what you're doing is pretty exciting. Share some more information about that.
Yeah. So I started my company Arialys in April 1st of 2020.
By the way, I like that name, Arialys. Yeah, that's an awesome name.
Yeah. So the backstory there. is that I worked in e-commerce, and then I was finding a gap in services where nobody was servicing these small businesses. Where I worked for a large e-commerce company that develops apps, and although at the time there's a number of marketing agencies and e-commerce agencies you could go to and say, hey, I am a business. I don't want to hire and scale a development team or a technical team. I just want to make the best subscription box, best dog toys, best whatever makeup possible. I just want someone else to do the tech. And if you're in a small, there's a million of them to serve as large enterprise, but there was increasingly small, basically nobody other than freelancers that you could really look out for. And so that's where I saw the gap, and I started the business into the pandemic. And thankfully, the industry just only grew during that time. So it was a really good time of all things, it was a good opportunity to take advantage of. And we've essentially grown, and we started providing Shopify services at the start. And for the first year, so now it's been just a bit over a year, for the first year, we've purely focused on our service and expanding the services that we provided. Because services we provided is things I could do and knew how to do in sort of an effective way at the beginning. And then I realized, okay, I'm not going to be the best web designer. I don't understand a lot about, I've never taken an HTML, CSS, or a JavaScript course. I should probably find somebody who's talented and does that. So we did that. Then you look at, well, you start outsourcing things that you know you're not going to be good at as the business owner. And then we realized that if we wanted to do really, really good work, instead of focusing on a broad list of all the things we could do for everybody on Shopify, for example, we decided to focus just on subscription companies and service, and essentially aiming to become number one Shopify subscription agency you can hire to help you with the technical bottlenecks for subscriptions on Shopify. So it's a really small niche if you think about it from a global standpoint, but also a very quickly growing niche. And when I say a small niche, I mean, there's probably 20, 30,000 companies that are doing subscriptions on Shopify. So the market is big enough for us to build a great company, but we're scaling as that goes. And that kind of took some soul searching to figure out, okay, what are we good at? What do we like doing? Where are our strengths? And what's the market really? Where's the opening? Like, how can we position ourselves so we can actually stand out from, hundreds of thousands of people who service Shopify stores?
Amazing. And, considering myself as a business coach, and that's kind of what I do these days, I really like what you said there. How can you stand out? And that's what we call a market dominating position. What is your unique selling proposition that makes you different in the market? And having that niche audience and niche target and specifics of what you do helps you stand out. But let's kind of go back a little bit. Starting a business in the pandemic must not have been a very easy decision. It's scary to start a business in the pandemic. And I know there's a whole lot of stories in the background regarding what happened, but what does that feel like, starting a business in a pandemic? And how did that experience affected how you went about running the business?
Well, I've ran a College Pro franchise before, and that was kind of the closest thing. I've started 5 businesses. 3 of them never made a single dollar. 1 of them never made profit, and this is kind of the best bet that I got right now to scale. And it's been over a year, and we're still here, and we're still plugging away. Things are That's good. Awesome. I can't complain. So, for example, College Pro, the feeling that you had when you're starting a franchise, you have somebody who's laid out the framework for you, and all you have to do is turn to the person to the left or to the right and ask them a question. Is this going to work? What should I do? Starting a business when I did, especially not knowing whether I'm going to have a first client, was stressful to say the least. And I used to, when I would, a lot of stress. I'll say this. And I'm fairly emotionally cued in person. I thought of myself as that, but, I was telling you part of the story is once I realized, okay, I really need to start this business and really need to find new customers, I was borderline having a panic attack where I didn't even realize it. I thought I had COVID because I was short of breath and I was freaking out. And through university, when I was doing a whole bunch of the student entrepreneurship evangelism, I would used to say entrepreneurship is for everybody. Everybody should try it. And I've started to realize it's like, you have to have some sort of a degree of uncertainty, not necessarily uncertainty avoidance, uncertainty tolerance. And you have to be okay to roll with the punches. Like, I still don't know where my income is going to be, next year. I don't have, or really, like, in reality, I don't know if I'm going to have income 3 months from now, right? Because it's like things fluctuate. And I know a lot of people who would be like, oh my God, how do you do that? My girlfriend tells it to me all the time. It's like, I'm kind of surprised that you're okay with so much uncertainty in your life. But the thing is, as an entrepreneur, coming back to the fulfillment side of it, you build a small skill set of how to generate value to other people, and other people will be giving you money with it through it. So it's you solve problems for them in a way that they want to pay you. And then that's kind of what helps you sleep at night is, it's like, I don't know what's going to happen 3 months from now. In reality, even if you're on a year-long, 2-year-long, 5-year-long employment contract, you have no idea what's going to happen in 3 months.
Sure.
So it's kind of this illusion. And as an entrepreneur trying to start your own thing, you have to be okay with that realization, to the point where you're not losing sleep and not getting depressed, anxious, and all these things. So I think I'm quite privileged, maybe born with just the genes that I'm fairly happy-go-lucky. And it's like, we'll figure it out. And it seems to work out. So.
That's pretty interesting, because I feel the same feelings you're feeling as an entrepreneur. I understand, that dealing with uncertainty and what you can control. And I think, it's just the idea of, don't focus on what you can control, because there's no point worrying about it. Focus on what you can control, and which is what you've laid out. So I have a specific problem I can solve. I have a specific niche I can take that skill to and solve. And then, of course, where a lot of business owners perhaps miss the mark is not having a specific strategy to go out there to talk to those people and win their trust and do business with them. And I think if you have those 3 elements connected together, the sky really is the limit. If you can connect those.
That's the hope. The hope here is now, like, we can expand to this specific niche fast enough before somebody turns around and goes like, that guy with 3 people wants to do this. Like, let's just crush him. Let's just roll out a page on our site that is going to instantly steal all of his business, because we've got more traffic, more customers, more resources. But can other businesses, bigger businesses, take your position and say, hey, you know what, going forward, we're the subscription people you need to talk to? It means saying no to a lot of work. And that's kind of what I think in business and positioning comes back to, and focus is like, it means saying no to a lot of customers. So that's the thing. So it's like, that's one of the decisions we have to do going forward. So right. I don't know. Yeah. Hopefully that's kind of the career bet for the next couple of years, right? Is that I'm dedicating my future to. If we can focus on the small thing and try to do it really, really well, maybe there's a company or world-class customer experience for people, and a company that we can build around.
Absolutely. I think you have something really special here, Andriy. And, I believe in this age, it's better to be a specialist than to be a generalist. And I think the more specialized you are, the more niche you are, the more you can actually say, I'm the best at X, Y, Z. Yeah. And that brings in the revenue, I think.
Yeah, I think, the thing is, my personal kind of dilemma there is, on one hand, I know myself that I love doing different things. And for me, the idea of we're just going to specialize in doing this one thing is completely counterintuitive, because I like learning about this. I like learning about this, and I like learning about this. And I don't know if you ever heard of, it was Scott Adams' double, triple threat idea. It's like, if you want to be the best in the world at something, you can either pick one thing and try to be the best in the world at it. If you're a basketball player, hey, you know exactly what you got to do. Ridiculously competitive. What the better option would be is, and Scott Adams likens himself as like, Scott Adams is the cartoonist guy who does the Dilbert cartoons, right? He's like, I'm not the best cartoonist, I'm not the best public speaker, and I'm not the best writer, but if I need to be a public speaker, cartoonist who also writes, I am basically one of a kind who has these three overlapping skills that all add value to each other. So you have this kind of double, triple threat where you don't necessarily have to be the best at one thing. You still create a lot of value by combining a number of skills together. And I think fundamentally, once you peel back our kind of business proposition of we're just going to be the best at Shopify subscriptions, it's really we're going to be the best at Shopify subscriptions with these two particular pieces of technology, and also bringing customer service that I really like. At this point, worked in sales and customer service for most of my career in some degree. So it's like I think I'm starting to realize a couple of core features is like, hey, if we really focus on servicing the hell out of your clients and honest, transparent experience for everybody and delivering on your promises, it's like that's an added benefit. So a bunch of people can focus on Shopify subscriptions, but can they also deliver the same degree of transparency and honesty? So I think there's still even with a really small focus, there's a lot of mental stimulus, and still it's very exciting. And if somebody's looking at, well, I want to do something really cool and I don't want to niche myself down to being just like this one thing, there's even that one thing is going to require a million skills that you'll never run out of, again, learning from.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, considering I think you were referencing a sports analogy, like even if you're the best basketballer in the world, that doesn't mean you're only learning how to shoot the hoops, right? You got to learn, you got to practice the strengths, you got to practice the agility, you got to practice different skill set to master that one niche. So it's never as simple as just the one thing, but very, very great points here. But Andriy, just from our conversation here, clearly I've been hearing your excitement about the world of e-commerce, and it sounds to me like you're really, really passionate about the space. You've of course had experience a number of years working for other businesses that work in this space. What is it about the e-commerce space that really gets you excited, and why should people really pay attention to the e-commerce space?
Yeah. E-commerce was kind of off my radar for a while, and it's kind of mind-blowing how big that industry has got, even though how small it is relatively, I think, to retail. I think e-commerce at this point is around 20% of retail, global retail. So if somebody goes buy something, about 20% of that happens online. Those numbers have only been going up. But the thing is, for me, what blows my mind about e-commerce is it's kind of lifted the gate and democratized creating products and services. And it's more specifically products, where you don't have to have a contract with a Sears or a Walmart or a Best Buy or Home Depot to build this one particular product that you might have the insight to. Which means is like for $50 a month, you can get a Shopify account and you can get somebody in your country to buy this thing that you've designed and maybe patent it or whatever. You don't even have to go that far. And fundamentally what that means is like now a lot more people are starting to sell and start businesses online, which again comes back to me evangelizing entrepreneurship. But the even better thing about e-commerce is that it does two things better than traditional retail. You don't have to think about fulfillment. So like the supply chain is not an issue because you stick it in the mail and it gets delivered. And the marketing is the next piece where you get to directly control how the customer comes in experience with your brand and your product. So fundamentally, I think e-commerce is where the next, how should I say this? I really believe that the next Steve Jobs will come out of e-commerce, because if you look at Apple as a company, what are they great at? Well, it was supply chain and marketing. And if Steve Jobs was alive today, he would be probably writing the copy on his own website, because he was that kind of person who wanted to control the positioning and the branding and the story. And you can do that with e-commerce. You can have the inventor write the copy and tell that story directly. So the marketing is a lot more effective and for small businesses, and you don't have to worry about the supply chain, which means that fundamentally, long story short, you can take all that time and focus on making better products. You can focus on going back to customers, doing surveys, figuring out version 2, version 3, version 4. And I really believe that what podcasting, blogs, and YouTube have done to the world of kind of media and entertainment, you're going to have direct-to-consumer e-commerce will do the same thing to retail in 5 to 10, 20 years. And we're seeing that on a smaller scale. But I do believe that at some point, we're going to be a lot more comfortable buying online, just because the experience is going to be that much better than going to a retail store. And I mean, the pandemic kind of highlighted a lot of this to us, just from health concerns is one thing, but just from the experience that, hey, it is possible to buy online, and you actually can have a better experience buying online because you do it from your home, you do it, and it just gets delivered to the door. I mean, how much more simple can it get?
Yeah, and I definitely agree with you here, Andriy. From what you've shared here, it sounds to me like e-commerce is definitely the future of retail, and everything is gravitating towards those. I know, like even Amazon and lots of other companies, they're starting to like test that. Of course, Amazon is one of the big players in this space. But my question for you, Andriy, is if someone is listening to us now and they're thinking, okay, I want to be an entrepreneur, but I don't know what industry to focus on. I don't know what technology to focus on. But now they've heard you. You said e-commerce is the future of retail, and this is going to be the big thing in the future. How can they go about starting, being an entrepreneur in this space? What kind of options do they have? Are the only options available? Is the only option available is to start their own product to sell, or are there other things they can do in this space to maximize this opportunity?
Yeah, well, there's two ways to go about it, I think, and this is just me being kind of top of mind. What kind of first things that come? Starting with, as people like to say, hardware is hard. So it's hard to design a physical product. It's actually very, very hard to design a physical product. It's a lot harder than to do a software product or even a service product. So we're a service company, and we started taking advantage of the e-commerce revolution and direct-to-consumer trends by just providing our services as, hey, we are experts in XYZ. We'll make better emails. We'll make better websites. We'll make sure your customers know all the benefits of your product. Don't leave. We communicate better with them, XYZ. You can do that. And you can become a freelancer. There's a million ways. Fiverr, Hey Carson is a specific Shopify specific one. StoreTasker is another Shopify specific one that is specifically for freelancers, where you can sign up and outsource your services. And then you can also, if you have a product idea, you can just go to shopify.com and start a service or start a product and put up a couple of pictures. And it's very, very straightforward. You can put up a couple of pictures if you have a prototype. I would almost say, if you're not sure, I mean, there's Kickstarters is another way of doing it, where it's kind of where you have an product idea, and you need to pre-sell something. That one's a little more like to have success on Kickstarter. It requires a little more upfront capital if you really want to produce a really good video, which typically is the key clincher for Kickstarter and that kind of stuff. But I'd say it's never been easier. So I'd say go to Shopify and see how easy it is that you can start an online store and start collecting credit card payments in 4 hours. If you really wanted to, just pick a free theme, and before you pay anything to Shopify, you can have a fully functioning online store. The question of what to sell, that's the much harder part. And I don't know. That's like where do good ideas come from? That's the question you're asking.
And that's, I guess, an entirely different conversation. You have to kind of like experiment. What do you want to sell?
Well, and one thing I don't want to overhaul or right over. There's a big piece of, for example, in e-commerce. I don't really do anything with it, but dropshipping. So it's taking someone else's product and just repackaging it and doing it. And I know not a lot of people who are doing it with Fulfilled by Amazon, so FBA, stores where you find a product that is maybe under-marketed, and you use your knowledge of English and your understanding of a customer niche, and you just obviously the margins are smaller because you're paying somebody else to come up with this idea and design things. and basically sell them and fulfill them. But there is definitely a business there too. So drop shipping is another thing that you can take a look at. Design your own product and go direct to consumer. Drop shipping and reselling, essentially. You can create services that freelance if you can design logos, if you can change fonts, if you have HTML and CSS or front end experience, back end experience. And then just, again, picking a niche, you can really like picking the small customer group people, think of some people that you can really help and figure out how many people just like this person that I've helped once can I find, and how do I find them, and how do I get my message to them?
Amazing. Those are fantastic, fantastic insights and 4 steps. I'm fascinated by the world of e-commerce, but that's not really my area of expertise. So it's very nice to hear some of those ideas from you. Yeah. So for yourself, this might be a dumb question, but I'm very curious about your answer. What would be the difference between Spotify and like an Amazon, selling on Amazon? Like, what's the difference there?
Okay. So Shopify, and that's a comment, I hear that all the time. So Shopify and Amazon, the biggest difference is Amazon gets to control the website, and you have very little control over how Amazon presents your product. So imagine, and Shopify gives you full design overhaul of you get a complete website. So if I list my product on Amazon, Amazon chooses who gets to see it and where to put it. You can pay for ads on Amazon. You can bump up your ratings with better descriptions and so on and so forth. But you don't, Amazon has a lot of say, and they handle the customer communication pretty much exclusively. So you don't own your customers. You don't own your customer lists. So those are the downside. The upside is you get to list on Amazon, and a lot of people will go on Amazon, and you don't have to think about from scratch building traffic to your site, because I feel like that's the biggest difference for people. You still have to drive traffic to your Amazon page, but it's a lot easier than to have an infant website that Google has never seen. You're probably never going to rank, well, never, you're not going to rank for years on organic SEO, on just like writing blog posts, or it takes years to write blog posts, podcast, and content for your website to get a respectable degree of traffic. So that's what I would say is with Amazon, you pay more for their service because they deliver you that out of the box. And I know a lot of people who do both, sell on Shopify, but also sell on Amazon, just because different clientele shop differently. And some people, I have an Amazon Prime account. If I can buy directly from there or from Amazon at maybe a better rate with a free shipping option, then I do that. But that's what I would say. If you want freedom, you go to Shopify. And if you want, and if you want more of a distribution from the get-go, you'll pay a little more with Amazon, but it will save yourself some time there. So it really depends on how easy is your product to understand and how much flexibility you need with the page design and the product and brand. Yeah.
Okay. Totally makes sense. Yeah, that really, really clarifies it. Thanks for answering that. So almost
like kind of a long-winded answer.
No, I really like this. It's more like pick your poison, which one works better for what you're looking for, or even combining both. But my next question here, Andriy, is what would you say is the future of e-commerce then? So we understand that e-commerce will be the big player over the next couple of years. And of course, there's no right or wrong answers to this because who knows the future. But based on your experience working with startups like Bold Commerce and other businesses that you've worked with, what do you see as a long-term future of the e-commerce space? Do you see 50% of the market now going towards that space? Do you see something new coming out of the entirely? I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I'll be honest with the market share and that sort of stuff. I haven't really looked. I'm sure there's better projections out there, and I'm sure that people actually crunching these numbers. I live kind of in this microcosm of how do small businesses interact with e-commerce, but what I can see even from this small scale is, first of all, I see a lot more people starting out in e-commerce. So I would imagine there's going to be a lot more, like Shopify talked about last year, about 1 million Shopify accounts being started. So think about it. You have 1 million people start a business. That's ridiculous. That's really cool. How many of those businesses actually made $1 and became profitable and started scaling, it's all kind of Pareto distribution, I would imagine. And 80% of money comes from 20% of people. But I think the future is we're definitely going to see more and better e-commerce infrastructure. We're going to see market pressure. We're going to see people like just general consumers expecting better experiences on the web, expecting things like online, buy online, pick up in store. I know that I do that, and I've started doing that more. And I mean, we've kind of been forced to do that for the last couple of months too, or through the last year. And big retail is coming around to this idea. This is now, well, it's not now, been around, this idea of omni-channel selling in retail has been kind of popular over the last 15, 20 years. So, and omni-channel means is like, I want you to be able to buy wherever you are. So if that means that you're surfing our website, or if you're on our Instagram page, or if you're on our Facebook page, we want you to be able to find the right product, have a good brand experience, purchase, and then get it delivered or go and pick it up wherever. So I see a lot of people having ridiculously good e-commerce experience. Otherwise, they would just get pressured out, and they just would miss out on like leaving money on the table, and they would get left out. And or I mean, we're seeing this with retail. Even if you walk into a Best Buy nowadays, if you remember how it was, for example, 10 years ago, store shelves were packed, right? And now it's more of a showroom experience. And I think Apple was kind of one of the first people to really start rethinking, what does retail space look like? And I love actually taking like takeaways from retail into e-commerce, because sometimes we don't really think about it, but it's exactly how. So for example, if you've ever done any online shopping for clothing, it's like, if you imagine what a clothing website would look like for sneakers or whatever, apparel, first two things you see is men's, women's. And then if you think about it, if you go to the mall, you realize, oh, as soon as I walk in, what am I asked to make a choice? Am I going right or am I going left? Right? And it's like e-commerce pretends like we're such rebels and we're crazy and, so innovative, but people have been doing this. And then you go category 1, category 2, category 3, category 4. So it's not, again, product discovery, all this customer experience. It's not, I think we're going to see a very good augmentation of in-person experiences, showrooms where you can go and play with product, like actually get a, kind of like going into an Apple store, right? Get an idea of what the product feels like, what it weighs, how it interacts, talk to another person about it. But also you can do you can get all of these, some portion of the experience online. And I think just standards for online purchasing are getting just raised every day.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that insight. I do agree. I think there's a lot of demand that people will have to increase the quality of the experience online. Just like now we have everything on demand. Netflix is basically pushed out everyone else out of the game, and that would definitely apply to the online space. So thanks for sharing that. So last question I do have here as we kind of move towards the last part of this conversation, and time has flown by so quickly. We've been really enjoying this conversation. For a business owner, someone who is starting out and getting into the world of entrepreneurship, or even someone who's an old timer, how would you say, we talked about the being comfortable with the unknown, right? We talked about being open to uncertainty and just being able to live with that. How do you handle that challenge, like mentally? And I know you talk about, you being very much in touch with emotions, and that goes into emotional mastery, emotional intelligence. But how do you balance, your mental health and your mental safety of, okay, I can't control this, and I just don't want to worry about this, and also being real and knowing that things are on edge. I have to take care of all of these things, and almost allowing yourself to feel the emergency, but not in a way that affects you as an entrepreneur. How do you balance those two extremes? How have you balanced it? How do you recommend someone who is kind of getting into this to balance it?
Oh man, I wish we could talk a little more about this, because this is like the idea of just mental health, and necessarily not even just mental, but proactive mental health is something we barely understand as a Western society. We started to look at proactive physical health, right? In the last 20 years, gyms became a thing and everybody needs a gym membership and supplements and healthy eating and a million diets. And then the industry kind of made movement. But we don't look at mental health the same way. We wait for things to go wrong. We wait for depression, anxiety to happen, and then you get a diagnosis, and then we put meds to that. And how do you, and like, I think fundamentally I had to ask myself that, just because I guess I was curious, how do you mentally become just a little healthier, maybe a little mental strength is one thing, I think, to mental health. It's been, I think, having a good proactive routine about how you handle mental challenges and stress specifically. So say depression and anxiety, let's call it those two things. And I think a big thing of it that helped me deal with, for example, stress of the first year of really figuring out, it's like, I don't have a customer. I don't know where they're going to come from. I don't know if this idea is going to play out. Will I have to move out of my apartment? Will I have to move in with my parents? Will I have to sell my car? Because I don't know if I'm going to have any money. One thing that helped me was, first of all, a commitment to this idea is like, you know what, no matter what happens, I will try to grow this company. And then secondly was just taking care of my physical health as best as I could, through sleep, diet, exercise. I mean, those are the basics. And it's just like making sure that in the morning, before anything happens, I go for a walk, or I do a stretch or an exercise, just kind of body weight stuff, go for a shower, read and meditate, basically, at least those two. It takes an hour to get all of those things in, but it really, first of all, kickstarts your day as you already started on a positive note. You already feel like, made your bed, you've already accomplished something, you get a dopamine hit out of it. And I feel like that's one big thing that has helped, having actually structure, because especially with starting a business, when you're in that no man's land, it's so easy to work late hours or to start working late. And especially if it's hard on you mentally and it's hard to get out of bed, or if you don't like, because sometimes it's ups and downs. Sometimes you're jumping out of bed, oh my God, let's go. And sometimes you're like, hold on, what am I doing here? Why am I doing this? Is this going to work? So I think having a routine, especially in the morning, not even as much of a bedtime routine. I was pretty terrible with those all the time, but I'd say for mental health, having a good physical health, taking care of your body, has been actually the most important thing for me mentally. But secondly, though, not to be understated, having good people around you, having people who are actually you can lean on and rely on. And it's like, same thing. Will I be able to move in with my family? Does my family like me enough for me to move in with them if shit hits the fan? And will my girlfriend get mad at me if I pull too many late nights and cancel plans too many times? Or will I understand? Will my friends bail on me because they think I'm a flake? And I think having that support network is kind of key to success.
Yeah, that's a fantastic answer. Some exercise, some sort of physical movement, especially as we're in a pandemic, and of course having a network of people who support and help you. I think those are cool. When I think about that question, and for me, I really approach things from more of an emotional mastery or intelligence perspective. I think about three things. When I think about self-awareness, so continue to monitor yourself and just know what you're feeling at every given time. And there are a whole lot of different exercises you can do to unpack those feelings, from meditation to journaling and all sorts of things. But when you know what's going on internally, it helps at least give you an option of going how to find solutions to the problem. And then the second part is, I think, self-control or self-regulation. So you have all these toxic emotions or negative emotions. How do you keep them in check so that you're not derailed from your original goals? Because that is very crucial as well. And then the last one I think about is empathy. So empathy both towards yourself and just giving yourself a little grace. Okay, I screwed up. That's okay. I'm not a horrible person. I'm not dumb. It's okay to make mistakes, and forgiving yourself, and also doing that to others, trying to understand where people are coming from. I think that really makes life very, very much easy if you approach it that way with empathy. But those three things is what has helped me personally as I've navigated this pandemic and been an entrepreneur and facing all the uncertainties. So last question before I let you go, Andriy, is do you have any thoughts, any further ideas or insights you'd like to share with our listeners before I let you go today?
I think you touched on a great point of, I think, reflection and self-reflection is just kind of paying attention. Because I'd say I'd say is the biggest thing, probably the best mental skill I've ever picked up in my life has been meditation, and just the benefit of sitting there for 10 minutes and paying attention to your own mental process and kind of, oh, here's a thought, here's how I feel. And they even feel like they're in different spots in your consciousness, right? And I feel like that's the kind of the leading domino to actually having, first of all, understanding how you feel and what the problems are, and then proactively looking into them and actually working around them. So I'd say as a key takeaway, don't underestimate the even 1 minute a day, 10 minutes a day, whatever, twice a day, whatever makes you happy. Give it a try. There's a bazillion good apps out there. I use Waking Up, and it's a paid one, but if you just email support@wakingup.podcast.com or whatever it is, support@wakingup, they'll give you, and ask them for a free account. They'll give you a free account because they don't want like it to be a barrier, cost to be a barrier. So I'd say yes. I think that all starts with how we talk to ourselves, and you have to first listen to yourself before you can really healthfully talk to yourself. So,
absolutely. Yeah. And where can people find you if they want to learn more about you and your company and what you do?
Arialys.management is our website, bringing us all back to business. We do Shopify subscription management, so we improve sign-up flows, customer lifetime value and spendings, and email conversions and optimization, and also paid advertising. So Facebook ads, Google search ads, that sort of stuff. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Andriy Rudnik, and just send me a message if you have any questions, Shopify related or business related. I'd be more than happy to help, and very happy to share whatever secret sauce, quote unquote, I could have found in my small years of entrepreneurship. So that's that.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Andriy. It's been such a pleasure getting you on the show. I feel like I'm living this conversation with a lot more insight into the e-commerce space. I think it's fascinating. I think what you're doing is courageous. It's exciting. And I can't wait to follow up and touch base in the coming months to see how things are going. And I'm sure, you'll crush it. But thanks for coming on the show.
Yes, thanks to you, David. And again, same to you. I know exactly how it feels to start a business and grow a business in the crazy time like this. And so, yeah, very much same goes to you. I watch your stuff, and it keeps me going.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.